Do you know what a coffee from a modern cafe and a chocolate bar from a supermarket have in common? Both begin in countries that earn very little from them. For example, Africa produces almost 3/4 of the world's cocoa, yet farmers in Ivory Coast receive less than 7% of the final price of chocolate. The rest goes to companies that process it, global brands, and retailers. Coffee follows a similar pattern. A farmer in Ethiopia might earn about $1 for beans that later become a cup of coffee sold for $10 or $15 in a cafe. So why do countries that produce valuable resources often remain poor? One reason is dependence on raw material exports. When an economy mainly sells oil, coffee, or minerals, its income depends heavily on global prices. If those prices fall, the economy quickly struggles. Real development usually happens when raw resources are turned into higher value products. Cocoa can become chocolate, copper can become electronic components, and each step of processing creates jobs and keeps more value inside the country. Some nations have managed this shift. Morocco, for example, once relied mainly on phosphate exports but now manufactures cars for companies like Renault and Peugeot. Chile used its copper revenues to build a sovereign fund that helps stabilize the economy when prices drop. However, many countries remain dependent on raw exports because they need strong currencies like the dollar to buy goods on global markets. Nigeria, for instance, relies heavily on oil, and when oil prices fell in the 2000s, the economy struggled. When export income isn't enough, governments often borrow in dollars, leading to a debt trap where a large share of the budget goes toward repayments. In Zambia, the government spends far more on debt than on education, and in Ghana, almost half of government revenue goes to servicing loans. At the same time, some profits from natural resources don't even stay in these countries, as multinational companies sometimes shift profits to low-tax jurisdictions. Still, there are examples showing that development is possible. South Korea was one of the poorest countries in the 1960s, but invested heavily in industry and education, creating global companies like Samsung and LG Vietnam attracted foreign investment, and is now a major electronics producer, while Botswana used diamond revenues to invest in infrastructure and education, becoming one of Africa's most stable economies. These examples show that development becomes possible when countries transform natural resources into local industries and keep more value within their own economies. So the question remains, do you think the global economic system can become more fair, or will powerful countries always set the rules of the game? Write your opinion in the comments.